What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we're just 4 days into 2024, and Nintendo Switch 2 has absolutely taken over headlines across the internet, and we're going to go over exactly why people are now expecting the year of 2024 to be the year of the Super Switch. Also, we're going to be talking about a new handheld that I think looks really cool and should work nicely for people looking to emulate their favorite DS games. And we're also going to be looking at Tetris, which is a game that I didn't think there was an ending to, but it appears someone actually managed to beat it. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with that MIG Switch, the flash cart for the Switch, as it appears that is going into production and will come to market here later on this month with pre-orders now live. But there has been a question around the origin of this device and who exactly has made it and put it out there, as a Team Executor continues to come up, and even one name, Gary Bowser. Well, they decided to respond on X and actually said this: "I'm not involved with this stuff," like just outright. And this was in reply to MVG's video with Voltar even tagging Gary Bowser just to see if, hey, are you a part of this? The MIG Switch? Doesn't seem like it's a good idea for Gary Bowser to do that after already tangling with Nintendo in court and still owing them, what, like $14 million? Basically having to pay Nintendo for the rest of his life, right? Well, at least according to him, he's not involved, and it still looks strange because he is linked based on logs that were discovered online for that domain. So I don't know if there's a good explanation for that. It seems like people are implying that he may be framed. I don't know, it seems pretty complicated to go down that rabbit hole around a flash cartridge for the Switch, but I don't know, maybe we'll get a clearer picture when Nintendo looks around, because something tells me they're probably doing that right now. Also, going into the new year, of course, the idea of video game company acquisitions is coming up. I assume there will still be some pretty large acquisitions in 2024, but it is funny because many of these companies are just being asked outright, hey, are you guys interested in being bought out by a larger corporation? Well, CD Projekt was the latest one to be asked this question, and we can actually see this posted up. This is over on Game Informer, with the CEO Adam Kaczynski was asked about it, and he said, "We are not interested in being included in any larger entity. We have worked our whole lives to get to the position we have now, and we believe that in a few years we will be even bigger and stronger. We have ambitious plans, and we are passionate about what we do. We value independence." And it is funny because we hear Sega being asked this question, Capcom's been asked, and it's like, no, we're not really interested in being purchased right now. It's just, there is kind of a push, it seems. I don't know if it's just from the press in general or just the gaming industry, as like, okay, these companies can be absorbed by the platform holders, so games can go on to Game Pass or become part of PlayStation Studios or help Nintendo. It's interesting right now, but the idea, I think, of a more independent gaming industry is probably good currently. Again, I don't know what the future looks like 10 or 15 years from now, but right now it seems like Sega, Capcom, and CD Projekt are just fine where they are. Oh, and the Epic Games giveaway for the holidays, where they're just throwing games out there for anyone who has an Epic Game Store account, continues on, with the latest one expiring at 11 a.m. Eastern today. So if you're seeing this when it goes live, you have a few hours to claim it, and it's pretty good. You can see this. It is a Plague Tale: Innocence. Again, that's pretty good. So 11 a.m. it will expire and go down, and then another one, a mystery game, will unlock. So I would definitely keep an eye on this page to see what the new game is. It's kind of hard for me to tell you guys, obviously. I would tell you, and then you're just a few hours out from it expiring. But yeah, maybe I'll cover it tomorrow as well if it's a big title. They've had some smaller indie games and stuff that they've given away, but when you see a Plague Tale, gotta throw it in there just to give people a heads up. So if you have an Epic Games account, just go over there, click a few buttons, and you'll have it in your library. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Nintendo's next generation device, as there was an analyst who put out a prediction for the year 2024. Now, if you looked around, there were a lot of headlines that seemed to just say it was a full-on report, as, hey, here's some information about this next system and what you can expect from it. But that's not really the case. Although there is one interesting part of it that seems like they're pulling from sources, and I do actually kind of believe it a bit based on what I've heard. But let's start here. This is over on gamesindustry.biz, and it's from Dr. Circantoto, who does have predictions every single year. And I don't know, they're maybe 50-50 because they were also calling for a more powerful Switch over the last couple of years now. But again, there's a bit of a backstory to that one. But they say the Switch 2 will come and be $400. And yeah, that seems about right to me. However, they do say, I can say a Pro model actually did exist and certain developers were already working with the development kit. I believe that is correct, actually. And it sounds weird because it's an easy out for someone who's been predicting that there would be a quote-unquote Pro model over the last several years. But based on what I've even heard, that is a legitimate thing, that people had development kits and it was basically just a Switch Pro, or just a new 3DS, if you will, to the regular 3DS. Now, why did Nintendo take them back? Well, it appears that the system that is expected to release, again, I think at the end of 24 or later 2024, is going to be a more powerful Switch. Yeah, I mean, okay, so they might have a wrinkle or two in there. It's hard to say exactly what it would be, but they will keep the same hybrid system. Again, we already expected that. It'll come in at $400. That's, I think, the price point many of us expect, and the games will move to $70. That, again, not shocking. We have seen that with Tears of the Kingdom. Nintendo already did that. In fact, I think the next big game they show will just be $70, like a 3D Mario, a Mario Kart. Yeah, it's going to be $10 more than you may expect. But Tears of the Kingdom did very, very well at $70. So if you're Nintendo, why wouldn't you do it again? You sell, 20 million copies, we figure, around there, of Tears of the Kingdom at 70. That's pretty impressive stuff. Now, for this new system, which people are now thinking, okay, Super Switch? Still keep the Switch name, and I think that makes the most sense because that is a very, very powerful brand currently. If Nintendo moves away from the Switch, it's going to be like reintroducing a whole new thing. You play off of the popularity of your current system, make it easier for people to make the step up. Now, will you be able to give them enough of a reason outside of it's just a more powerful system? Because while for me that's enough, and maybe many of you, I'm sure, there is a mainstream that's like, okay, what else you got, right? And maybe 4K would do it, but I think there still needs to be a little more, and Nintendo has to figure out what that is. But here's hoping they already, of course, have thought of that, and it's basically readying the presentation to introduce it, since, again, if I think it's coming out at the end of 2024, some are still thinking it might release over the summer. Just avoid the holiday time period for the release because it's going to sell out anyway, and just ensure that you have enough stock heading into that November, December rush. But I think it's very important to make the distinction here. This is a prediction from a person that's been, again, like half and half on a lot of the things they've said in the past, essentially since the Switch came out. This is not a full-on report from an outlet saying, hey, we have information, here's the deal. But I think these are all safe guesses, safe bets, if you will, as it's pretty much all stuff I'm expecting. I think many other people are even hoping for. Just a better Switch, Nintendo. Don't get too weird. Don't get too out there. Maybe the next generation you can do that, but I think currently people would be kind of annoyed if you opted to not do a Pro model and just completely went away from the hybrid setup and never, I think, reach the full potential of what a more powerful hybrid system could do with current technology and what NVIDIA most likely could come up with. So stay the course, Nintendo. A more powerful, a Super Switch, if you will, later on this year at $400. I think that's the way to roll. Next up, let's talk about new Game Pass games for the first half of January. And gotta say, it's a pretty good way to start off 2024 for the service. We can see this over on news.xbox.com. Starting at the top with Hell Let Loose, cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S, that is available today. Moving up to January 9th, we have Assassin's Creed Valhalla, cloud, console, and PC. We also have Figment, that's cloud, console, and PC. Moving to January 11th, we have Super Mega Baseball 4, cloud, console, and PC. That's through EA Play. Then we have We Happy Few, cloud, console, and PC. Apparently this was published by, I think, Gearbox. That's why it seems weird, because technically Microsoft owns Compulsion, the studio that made it originally, but because they didn't publish it, it was licensing, all kinds of weird stuff there. But it's in the service now. Again, January 11th, you can check that out. And then we have Resident Evil 2, cloud, console, and PC. This on January 16th, followed up by Those Who Remain, cloud, console, and PC. Resident Evil 2. awesome addition to the service. If you have not played this game, I mean, come on, this is the time to do it here. Of course, you can also play it on your PC or on your ROG Ally. That is the nice benefit of Game Pass. If you have it on console and PC, you can jump between the two with Play Anywhere. But I will say, Resident Evil 2 works really well on the Steam Deck, works really well on the ROG Ally, as well as, I mean, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, while I think that game just went on for way too long. I mean, 60, 70 hours easy just of kind of casually playing through it with the main story in mind as the main focus. Still, it's a big-time Assassin's Creed game that people may have missed out on. It's just adding more and more value to the service that's not necessarily just Microsoft first party. Still like these fun little third-party additions that maybe in the backlog for many, but some just never got a chance to try it out, and it's going into the service. So definitely a good way to start off the year, this going up to January 16th, which means expect probably another wave of announcements in a couple of weeks for the service. Next up, let's talk about a new pair of handhelds that I am very interested in, and originally, Neo showed this off as kind of a conceptual image. Like, what do you guys think about this? Would you want to buy this if we produced it? Just kind of testing the waters, and yeah, I would love to pick one of these up, and it looks like it will be coming to market in form of crowdfunding later on this month. Now, I say there's a pair of handhelds, but really I'm just interested in one of them. However, you can see an image of it here. This is the Neo Flip DS and the Neo Flip keyboard. All right, so pretty obvious, one has a keyboard, one has a bottom screen that is a 3.5-inch touchscreen display. So you can kind of look at that DS and go, oh, okay, yeah, dual screen, but this would be perfect for emulating DS or 3DS games. And yeah, I think this would be a really cool experience to have. The top screen is a 7-inch 1080p display, IPS, 120 hertz refresh rate. And that paired with that 3.5-inch screen and the Ryzen 7 7840U would emulate DS and 3DS games, I feel like, really well. That with the Radeon 780M integrated graphics, up to 28 watts. They also have 6-axis gyroscope, storage M.2 2230 PCIe 4, micro SD card reader, a whole bunch of ports with USB 4 Type-C, USB 3.2 Gen 2, and Oculink. I am curious what the pricing on this is gonna be, and I guess the battery life, although most of these handheld PCs, when you kind of get up there in like the top of the line area, you expect a couple of hours at best when playing anything serious, although many of the emulators don't necessarily stress these systems as much, and you can find yourself getting extended play, is what I'll say there. But with the dual screen setup, you also powering the two displays, battery tests are gonna be very interesting on that Neo Flip. And of course, pricing, that'll be another big one. These are things we're still waiting to hear about from their crowdfunding campaign later on this month. You just want to keep an eye out for it as they recently announced it. And this seems like something that would probably get a lot of interest because it's genuinely different in a field of these handheld PCs that start to look more and more the same. This is an interesting concept. So we'll see how all this turns out. But yeah, I wouldn't mind picking one of these up, checking it out in the video, and trying to emulate some DS and 3DS games on it and see how it does. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the game of Tetris that, up until recently, I thought was never ending, as in they would drop pieces on you until you filled up the board and then you start all over again. And it's a simple game. It takes 10 or 15 seconds to explain to somebody, and then they can just go off and start trying to fit shapes together and clear lines. Well, it appears someone has actually managed to beat the game, which sounded ridiculous to me. And then I start looking into this, and the rabbit hole that you go down just to understand and gain context around the situation took it to a whole other level. Let's start over here though. This is over on the BBC, saying Willis Gibson posted a video on his YouTube channel of the moment he reached level 157, causing the game to crash. This took 38 minutes to beat the game, and they point out that until recently, people figured that level 29 was the highest level you could get to. That's news to me because I would not get anywhere near that when I would play. But There is a video, as I mentioned, of them doing this in real time as they were streaming it, which again, very impressive to do all this on stream, especially to see how fast the pieces are just flying in. I feel like a lot of these I would say just professional Tetris players see this board and the shape's completely different than 99% of us. However, that video has accumulated over 664,000 views since going up just a day ago, and it's a very interesting watch. But if you want to gain more context around this whole situation in the scene for Tetris, check out Game Scout. They made a video called "After 34 Years, Someone Finally Beat Tetris," and some of the stuff that goes on figuring out how to get past level 29. I mean, incredible amounts of dedication, because when you get to level 29, there's no way to move the pieces from like the center to left or right in time before it crashes into the bottom of the board. And the way people figured it out was being able to button mash really, really well. As in, you actually tap and vibrate the back of the controller as you're mashing the front, and it gives just enough time to get the pieces from left to right. That's not to mention being able to actually place them so that you are continue to clear lines as you go along. Now, level 157 isn't necessarily the level that ends the game, like that's where the kill screen is, but when you get that high up in these levels, the game will start to do some weird stuff behind the scenes when it comes to RAM and writing back code and stuff. And eventually it can get tripped up and just freeze, and that's it. You have conquered Tetris. But hey, a big congratulations to Willis Gibson. It is impressive stuff to see. Tetris has finally been conquered, and they showed me just how bad I really am at Tetris, apparently. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, and that is Game of the Year Madness. We're down to the final 4, and I was trying to get people together during the holidays to do a live stream between rounds. It was taking a while, so I said, you know, we're gonna go to final 4, and as we wrap up, we'll have one big live stream to kind of reflect on everything that's happened. But this did pit The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom versus Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and yeah, Tears of the Kingdom is currently stomping Mario Wonder. It's Tears of the Kingdom. What are you gonna do? But it being up, I mean, nearly 75 to 25 is, that's more than I thought it would be. Just Mario Wonder had a lot of momentum here, but I'm gonna have this run a bit longer because we are down to the final 4 at this time. And then of course we'll jump over to the other side of the bracket, which will be interesting because we'll be pitting RE4 up against Baldur's Gate 3. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Jimmy, who says, the all-in-one VR are definitely the best options. I have a Quest 2, and my kids absolutely love it. Don't have to do any extra connections or rely on an external device to power the games, and the battery lasts surprisingly long. You usually need a break to rest your eyes long before it dies. Yeah, I think a lot of those all-in-one VR headsets are like 2 to 3 hours, if I'm not mistaken. But the thing is, you typically do want to take a break from VR after even an hour. So, I mean, 2 to 3 hours feels like you're in there for a while. Like you actually feel being in there. So that's the one benefit, but also kind of a detriment to the whole experience, because it does seem like Meta wants people to spend their entire workday in VR, kind of the way they're showcasing this in a more enterprise setting. I just don't think that's feasible right now. The fact that you spend an hour or two playing a VR game and you're like, okay, yeah, I gotta sit out a few more here and I'll let it charge. In the meantime, I think we still have a ways to go with virtual reality for an all-day thing. But I think for now, in shorter spurts, the all-in-one headset is certainly the way to go. And it's kind of a shame that Sony decided to go the route of having to rely on the PlayStation 5 console with it being wired, because it feels kind of old compared to the Quest 2 and the Quest 3, despite those technically being less powerful than obviously the PlayStation 5. Convenience, though, just continues to win out. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was the Switch 2 headlines taking over the internet? I think there's a lot of anticipation for 2024, but if it just comes out, it's $400, it's a better Switch, $70 games. Would you be okay with that, or do you want Nintendo to get kind of weird going into the next generation? Then also, what about the Aya Neo Flip DS? Are you interested in picking one of those up for DS or 3DS games? And someone actually beat Tetris. How far can you get, though? Have you seen level 29 even? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.